they were being very aggressive and intimidating. I didn't find out until later that they had keyed the whole side of my car.
I'm a little hesitant to make this video because I'm not really sure how it's going to be interpreted, but this is my car, and it's a McLaren 570S. It's awesome and I love it, and I'm in a really fortunate position to be able to afford it, but there's a problem, and that's with people's unconscious bias based on what it looks like and the fact that I have a blue badge. I'm a blue badge holder, and for some reason driving a sports car and having a blue badge is completely unacceptable for some people. I really can't tell you how many times this happens, and I really didn't want to make this video. For the longest time I really didn't want to, because I don't really want to I find it a bit awkward talking about my car, and like I said earlier, I didn't know how that would be perceived by you guys. But I was sat in a cafe this morning and I had my car parked there and I had the blue badge up. It wasn't a pay for parking bay, it was just a loading bay. Everyone was parking there, grabbing a coffee, even with or without blue badges. And 2 times in the same morning I was sat there with my coffee and I had one guy walk past. He said, "Oh, look at that car. It's got a fucking blue badge on it. Takes the fucking piss. Unbelievable." Can you believe that, to his mate? I kind of just sat there. I was like, you know, whatever, it's fine. And then another guy sat down opposite me, and obviously I look quite young, so a lot of people don't see my clutches and don't think that it would be my car. So then he starts talking to his friend and says something along the lines of, "Do you see that McLaren? It's got a blue badge on it. That takes the piss. It's unbelievable. If you can afford to have that car, then you can afford to pay for parking. It's obviously just a scam." And I want to break that down into those 3 points. The first being, it takes the piss. It's unbelievable. What I think is meant by this is, it's sort of like people feel like they're having their cake and eating it. That you're having a nice car and also you're disabled and having a blue badge. Like, you can't have both. You can't have a blue badge and also have a nice car, because that's not a thing that can happen. You know, you want your bed and you want to sleep in it. Like, it's not a thing. The second being, if he can afford that car, he can obviously afford to pay for parking. And I think what's meant by this is that a lot of people just see a blue badge as like a free parking scheme. Like, oh, like free parking ticket, you know, just a way to get out of having to pay for parking and to save money and to kind of cheat the system a little bit. The third one, which is, it's a scam. And I think what's meant by that is that, you know, it's impossible to have a sports car or drive a sports car and be disabled at the same time, because those two things, they're mutually exclusive. You can't have both. You're either disabled, too disabled to drive a sports car, or you're not disabled and you're just getting the blue badge because you want whatever. It's impossible. You can't have both. It's a scam. It must be a scam. And honestly, this really annoys me. But it's not so much my situation that annoys me, it's the reasons behind it and the kind of preconceptions of what a disabled person is that really annoy me. And I want to break those 3 points down again as to why they're complete rubbish. The first one being, it's seen as taking the piss and unbelievable. I just don't understand this notion of, you know, you're too young to be disabled, you're too handsome to be disabled, you're too pretty, you know, you have too nice a car to be disabled. You can't possibly have a nice car and be disabled. I know a lot of girls who are YouTubers who are disabled or who are fencers who get people coming up to them all the time and saying, "Oh, you're too pretty to be disabled." And honestly, what I want to say to that is, we are just all people and we're the same as everyone else, and our physical ability has nothing to do with our other attributes. And I really don't see the link between being too something to be disabled, being too young, too whatever, to be disabled, to having a too nice a car to be disabled. I just don't really understand that. I think that's complete rubbish in my opinion. Number 2, if you can afford that car, you can afford to pay for parking, and I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it's not just a free parking badge. It doesn't just get you free parking wherever you are. It's not a way to save loads of money. I still get a lot of tickets, and most places in London you don't get free parking. Sometimes you'll get an hour extra with somewhere that you park, but usually it just allows you to park in bays that you wouldn't usually be able to park in. And the whole reason behind it is not to scam the system and get free parking so that disabled people can just mooch and get free stuff. It's not the case. The case is, the reason behind them, the reason people get them, is for convenience. It's if you have a disability and it's harder for you to walk, you'll probably have to take a car more often than someone who doesn't have a disability. You know, for example, if I didn't, I could walk, I could skateboard, I could take the bus a bit easier, I could ride a bike to the high street, for example. But you know, someone who's in a wheelchair, someone who is on crutches or has a physical impairment might not be able to do that, so they might need to go take their car to go shopping. And if so, they might need to park closer because it stops them from having to walk too far because maybe they're in a lot of pain, or to carry things back, because for example with me, carrying things on my crutches and carrying things in a wheelchair is not that easy. So what the blue badge does, it allows you to park nearer to places than you would usually be able to. And the thing is that the reason I think that they make it for free is because they understand that a lot of the time you wouldn't need to use your car. Like a lot of my friends who are able-bodied, they don't have a car, they just cycle, they get the tube, they get a Boris bike, they walk places because it's a lot easier, and they don't need to run a car, they don't need to pay for parking places. I know that most people with a blue badge would be happy to pay for parking if it meant that they could park where they needed to, if it meant that they could park a little bit closer to the shop, if it meant that they could have a space where they could have a bit more space either side of them in a disabled bay so that they can get their wheelchair out of the car so they're not jammed next to someone in a bay parking scenario. They're the reasons for having a blue badge. My friends with wheelchairs, if someone parks too close to them, they cannot get their wheelchairs out of the car or back into the car if they go somewhere, come back and someone's parked next to them. And that's the whole point of having a blue badge bay, a disabled. That's why I don't park in disabled bays, because I'm aware that someone else might need to come in a wheelchair and need it more than me. Even though I've got a blue badge and I'm perfectly allowed to park there, I choose not to. It's nothing to do with saving money or trying to get free parking. So I just don't understand this notion where people think that it's just to scam the system. And I want to conclude this video on number 3. It's a scam. So why can't someone with a disability drive a nice car? Why is it so offensive to some people? I think it stems from this concept of what a disabled person is. And that concept or image is of someone who needs help. Someone who is disabled, unable to do things for themselves, and thus in a worse physical state and often in a worse financial state than other people, than the average person. And when someone sees a disabled person that doesn't really fit that criteria, it can often cause offence because it must be a scam of some sort. How can a disabled person who's usually considered to be in a lower societal standing be doing better than the average person? In reality, we're all just people, and you shouldn't jump to conclusions based on preconceived societal perceptions of what a disabled person is or should be. And sorry for the rant, this kind of stuff really frustrates me. I'd love to hear your opinions on it. This was just a really quick video I wanted to shoot, and it was in the moment. Let me know what you guys think, and let me know your experiences with this if you have one. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you soon.
You get a lot of verbal abuse, usually off like middle-aged people who think they're doing the right thing, but we were in McDonald's once and we literally just parked up and people came out and without even checking to see if there was a blue badge visible in the car, which there was. They asked us told us that we couldn't park here. They asked us to leave. And they were actually directing people from the drive-in at the McDonald's to wait in the disabled bays. And even though we had a disabled badge, they wouldn't let us park in them.
I was driving my granddad to the hospital, and because he was having just a random procedure they had to have done. He's turning 90 next year. And he's had several knee reconstructions. He's had heaps of issues with his back, and a whole bunch of different things like that. So he can't drive himself around anymore. So I was driving him to the hospital, and I parked in the disabled park. In Australia, it's a bit different. We don't have blue badges, but we have like permits. And then as we were getting out and I was helping him, walking him into the hospital, these two, I'll say elderly, they were probably like middle-aged men, started like saying that he didn't deserve to have the permit, and because like I was completely able-bodied, even though like I was aiding him because he can't walk that far from the hospital, so he needs that short walk to get there. It blew my mind that someone would just be so brazen or just completely not even caring, just to be like, oh no, you don't deserve it.
And they stayed back a little bit. Of course, I was in handicap parking towards the front of the parking area. And I noticed that they were walking towards us, and I'm telling the kids, hurry up, get in the car. Of course, I was needing assistance to get in the car. I couldn't drive. And I was just really in bad shape. Well, next thing I know, they're right up on us, making a lot of comments and just stupid, your stupid, ignorant comments. What do you think you're doing? You think you're special? Who do you think you are? They came over to like the driver's side, and my daughter was sitting behind my son who was driving. Started looking into the vehicle, doing this number, because I had somewhat tinted windows, and I was like, lock the doors, don't let them in. Then they come up to my driver's side, start doing the same thing, muttering some things. They were being very aggressive and intimidating. I didn't find out until later that they had keyed the whole side of my car.